Welcome back, Fortnite fam. Sorry about that. Kelly laughed at me the whole 3 minutes, but we're back. We're back. Game number 1, Curve and Higgs, 12 elim victory royale. This is a statement game if I've ever seen one, with so many duos in that lobby. They were following, like watching, going, "Oh my gosh, this is the most chaotic end game we've ever seen in our lives." Hope that they didn't find a way. Well, Higgs, Curve, they got themselves the VR. As we start to take a look at these standings, yeah, it's gonna be a little skewed for sure. Higgs and Curve break into the triple digits immediately off of that. But man, so many different duos performed so big in that last game. Let's talk about Agers and Venno showing up. Obviously, for Venno, you know, they had that little spat on high ground, and then he decided, oh shoot, we got to go ahead and dip out, and then was left to solo clutch. But still, they're going crazy. They have so many eliminations.
Yeah, and there was a big question as far as them landing in a double contested POI. How exactly are they going to be able to handle this? And they had, what, 5 eliminations early on around zone 4. So to see them being able to handle these situations early on is exactly what we needed to see from them to be able to have a successful end game. And that's exactly what we got to watch. Honestly, the height still didn't necessarily go the way that they were hoping to. And having it be up against Peterbot and Polio, there's only so much that you can do in that 2v2 situation. So although it did come down to a little bit of a solo play from Venno in the end there, not necessarily exactly the end game that they wanted, but with the amount of eliminations that they were able to grab in the early and mid game, it's able to kind of hold them up in our top 10 leaderboard now.
Yeah, great to see Venno and Agers kind of getting into mix towards the end of the game. I will kind of give everybody at home a quick little peek into some of the stats behind the scenes. Venno actually did the most amount of damage that game. He had upwards of 1,400, and second place actually only had 1,100. So 300 damage kind of ahead of Higgs, who was in second place there. So the damage is being dealt by Venno, and the damage was actually dealt up towards the high ground. We did see Venno and Agers try to make a little bit of a play onto Peterbot and Polio, who of course were kind of holding the high ground up there for just a short spell. That being said, that little bit of a fight that we saw go on up there was kind of actually on the back foot of Peterbot and Polio finding this elimination right there. If you got a quick glimpse of that, Peterbot was actually down to 9 builds, but that single elimination netted him upwards of 120 builds. After that, they were like, all right, it's time to go ahead and take high ground. Wait a minute. Hold up. Why is Agers up here shooting me in the back? And yeah, so they were kind of caught off guard just a little bit. But of course, Polio kind of stayed alive and was forced to go ahead and do exactly what we saw him do at Summit. Went ahead, stayed alive as a solo to go ahead and secure a couple of more points. That being said, it wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't a 1v4 clutch win, but enough to go ahead and keep them towards the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, Polio, once again, holding that solo, and to do it in the way that he did, where it wasn't necessarily like he was playing scared, he was kind of in the back end of zone. No, he was playing it like he was a full duo, even dropping down to get refreshes on recently eliminated players while still controlling height. But obviously, there's only so much you can do in that moment, especially when you had full duos around you like Higgs and Curve, Muzz and Rise on the low ground. But just lots of big teams in that end game there. But you know, we talked about him a little bit at the start of the show. Muzz and Rise, you asked me, Zeke, is this a team, a duo that can come out and break into the top 10? And I honestly couldn't give you a confident answer at the start. I don't want to lie to you. There was a bit of a question mark because they are so newly formed and we haven't really been able to see them in these set lobbies. But finally, when there's doubts casted, they like to make sure that there is no doubt for them anymore. Muzz and Rise getting second place in the game number 1 is a great way to start their tournament.
I mean, second place, 6 eliminations, and honestly had a pretty good chance to go ahead and win that game as well, as they were a duo alive kind of on the low ground there. Unfortunately, couldn't make it happen, but they will definitely be happy with their game 1 performance without a doubt.
You know, there's so many other things in that game. There's so many solo clutches. I got to think about that Yamzo solo clutch in that game. Again, we have 12 games we have to fight through, right? This isn't like a sprint. This is a marathon. So finding these situations where you can pick up these critical points, man, major props to Yamzo.
I mean, it was even before this moment when Josh first went down, where he was trying to break into the edge of zone, and he had two different teams kind of pinching him from either side, and he was just using so much mats, so many of his heals just to stay alive. I thought, well, there's no way, he's used up so many resources, but Yamzo grabs this clutch refresh elimination in the moment that he needed it most, just giving him the mats that he needed to survive and make it into the end game even further. And so that's allowing them to be currently in 16th place. And honestly, from how rough that kind of transition into the moving zones were, I think that that is an impressive result for him.
Yeah, I think when he actually entered that situation himself, I think they were on 8 points. So if he just went down, didn't actually put up a performance like that, he'd be on 8 points and a whole heck of a lot further down the leaderboard. So 28 points, nothing too crazy, but still kind of keeping them in the top 20. And we were looking at that second page right there. I did see another team that I'm sure everybody at home was kind of seeing as well. Acorn and Bolts in 15th place. Not necessarily a good game from those guys. Kind of expect them to do better, but that's why we love grand finals. 2 days, 12 games total, so 11 more to go.
Yeah, this is just like the feeler game, right? This is just the first of many to come, and that's fine, right? We probably don't want to have more games like that, but this is Acorn Bolts. I have full faith. They'll come out swinging either this game or the game after, or they'll just win everything. Let's just let Acorn and Bolts win it all. All right, sorry about that. I saw the future there for a moment. Forgive me. With that being said, it's that time, though. We're almost getting ready to kick off game number 2. What have our players learned? What are they going to do differently? How are they going to take the fight to everyone on the battle bus for those global championship spots? Whoa, sorry about that. Got crazy there. Casters, over to you.
Zeke always keeping things interesting. For me, my takeaway here, Jacob, is the noticeable gap. 12 eliminations in a grand final setting. You get more points, you are rewarded more. So Curve and Higgs are very far from some of that other competition right now.
Yeah, we've also seen a few teams that you didn't necessarily expect to be dealing with Storm Surge were actually really affected by that Storm Surge mechanic. Inability to get enough positive damage ratio throughout the course of the game really hurt them in the second half of those zones. But there's 11 games left, plenty of time to make adjustments. So let's just jump into game 2.
Here we have it. Game number 2's kicking off, and of course, Booga and Braids. We had this big question mark on their contested drop. It seems like they've gotten themselves a little bit of distance from Contrap and Darcy. In the early game last time when we tuned in, the fight had already broken out, and they were almost forced into a stalemate here. I do wonder if it's just the terrain, right? It's really hard to navigate with all the trees and whatnot. If this drop spot is ever going to be completely clear for them, probably not. But on the other side here, you have the fight with Yamzo and Josh breaking out already, and they're coming out way ahead.
And I already see a little difference here in this fight versus kind of how we peeked into the action in that last game. Is unless they got big pots off or maybe a chug jug, it doesn't look like they took a single hit of damage. So already changed the way things up, but this one will not change. Triple contested as Agers actually gets 2 to jump on him. They don't get the uncontested eastern side anymore, but he does scare him off, gets the first floor loot. Veno jumps in to take down Chimp, basically leaving 20 by himself on this side of the map.
So smart too. Look at the thought process coming out of Veno there, not to fully commit into the builds, knowing that the teammate was here, waits for Agers to come through, but 20 gets the exchange there. In the end, Veno was quick, but here it is. Madden and Chance want revenge. They're coming in fast. Veno's gonna have to play this one smart.
Yeah, essentially 2v1. You've got Aoxy and Jojo Fishy in the distance as well that can potentially disrupt this. Agers fully eliminated out of this game. No chance for a revive. 68 points in that last game for Veno and Agers. They made a play for the high ground, and consistency throughout 2 games really relies on this, how he's going to survive. He doesn't have any extra shields other than that he just found, thanks to Ritual going down, of course. So this is definitely going to leave him with his hands full.
This is perfect. Look, you have Magma now starting to look up as well, possibly thinking about jumping into this fight here, but Veno's lurk game is just the best that we've ever seen. Look, he holds it down so long enough that Chance and Matter are still debating if whether or not it's worth going inside the builds here. Veno just watching. He could even sneak out if he really wanted to, but might get caught in the process. He already has the card. There it is. Look, now they're going to leave them to second guess themselves, and Veno's probably going to get away scot-free here.
Yeah, those third-party shots from the distance Kind of made Madden a chance to kind of scurry away from that side, which means they can no longer lurk. But the shot from above, the rapid fire SMG, Veno strikes him down and brings it to him and Chance in a 1v1 scenario. Chance getting that shockwave effect, being able to move a little bit faster could be the difference maker here, as he's able to weave in and out of the box. But Veno still hitting haymaker after haymaker. Got him boxed
Wow.
up. Veno,
Oh, no.
what are we witnessing, monster?
But yeah.
But now Magma comes up. He sees what's going on here. That back wall was not
KK.
his. He does manage to take it just in time. And now he's scrambling to try to stay up here. 2 shots coming in from both sides. And Veno falls with
Way
4
too much team
eliminations.
L.
He did manage to pad the stats, but in the end, Void and Magma's timing was just too good. They waited patiently, but my gosh, what a clutch from Veno there.
Yeah, it just almost seems to me everybody was watching the feed. When you see Chimp go down, you're like, at least 2 teams are fighting. When you see Madden go down to Veno and Aegis, you're seeing all 3 teams in that exchange. Magma and Void probably watched the feed along with Reet and Cooper. Perfectly timed, at least 1 elimination, cleaning that one up, getting some surge. And this is where you see Reet and Cooper kind of doing the same thing. They have the luxury to rotate around because of that crucial win against Josh and Yamzo for the actual POI. So now they can easily go back to Wonky Land and continue on with the rest of their game.
Just an explosive start to game number 2. And I mean, I'm thinking to myself, like, how do you hit the drawing board on that? What can you do better, right? Like, when a team just decides they're going to full 50-50 you, and you manage to win that fight as fast as they did, but the other duos jump on you, and then you have a lurk outside of the POI. I mean, at this point, something's got to break here. Well, either way, we get to start touching base with the teams that are performing very, very well here. Muzz and Rise, of course, have a nice little lead, nice little cushion being built here. You have Clicks and Rapid fighting off against Mirobs. Mirobs just recently signed to Team Force here, unfortunately. He is going to be one of the first to fall. 2 eliminations now for Clicks and Rapid here as things are starting to rack up for them.
I already know what happened. I already know what happened. We might see a replay soon, I don't know, but I already know what happened. They used the cube yet again from Sanctuary, and that was one of the things with everybody contested around them, or you can jump on Moneymaker, or you could jump on Vigils and Threads. I think they just saw QK Marobs out of position. The first one got surprise attacked, and then from there, 2v1 against Clicks and Rapid. Honestly, gonna be hard for anybody to overcome odds like that, so they're gonna go ahead and start their game off, and you can really see a lot of the adjustments from not just one team, but multiple teams in this lobby. One of the things I kind of noted when we started this game is how some teams were kind of lacking with Storm Surge. It was the inevitable downfall. I think they're realizing from game 1 to game 2, that cannot be a thing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Josh Nyamzo, we know, had very little surge going into that second zone 6 or so, right as we got to that moving zone. So things were looking a little worse for wears for them. Another team that we definitely want to touch on, obviously King and Craze here, right? Very strong duo. We didn't really see their journey nor follow it game 1, but they were in 4th place with 4 eliminations. They have just been playing exceptionally well over the last few weeks, and they have slowly and surely earned their way into the conversation as a team that can be a dark horse winner of this weekend's competition. Part of what's going on here is that there are so many teams contested all around them, so a lot of favorable things kind of lining up for King and Craze. But take a look at this fight, Peter and Boyo. This is more about what we see from them grains to grains, right? Picking and choosing their fights wisely.
Yeah, they just got to be careful here. They're a little bit further north than I would expect it at this point in time, but again, the zone pulling, probably forcing their hands, but they went from Sinister all the way to above Calamari Canyon. Even though we probably don't see him yet, one of those 2 teams in the minimap could very well be King and Craze, looking to third party it, because we know when it comes to King and Craze, they don't necessarily sit in one of those boxes shooting off in the distance to get their surge. They're a fighting team. They kind of remind you of like that early Peterbot and Poyo duos where even if they were below on surge, you kind of see them fighting on the outskirts. The next time you see them, they're 500 above. That's the feeling I get from King and Craze.
Yeah, definitely a dynamic duo. Boyo, Peterbot right now. This is looking pretty good as they disengage from the fight. They've got what they wanted. They got to touch the vending machine there, get a couple trade and tags off there. You see Acorn Bolt still watching nearby. Last time in game 1, they were kind of positioned up not too far from Peterbot and Boyo and Frosted Flats. This time they have found themselves in a bush, also in the warpath of Peterbot and Boyo. So the strategies coming together fairly closely game to game, but also dynamic from game to game, which you can definitely appreciate.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes good shots right there from Acorn, but when you're kind of boxed up, you know, teams don't necessarily peek unless they kind of see a window open, a half edit, so they're not necessarily looking in your direction. By utilizing bushes here, you do leave yourself vulnerable. How many times have we seen teams rotate by and just kind of blindly shoot the bushes to make sure nobody's there? But what this is allowing them to do is catch so many teams off guard, even the ones that are in their bases. And even though it might be one shot here, one shot there, those small numbers add up over the course of the game. So Acorn having his head on straight along with Bolts, looking to make up for a couple of the mistakes they made in that last game. As we continue to look around, Boji, Alongo, Kausers, DK, Vlex, and his duo there. Still on the outskirts, still early on in the game, Monster, so I don't think it's necessarily going to affect too many players being this slow to the zone.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're taking their time, but they're farming teams for surge damage here. But in the distance, that duo we just saw, H-Cube and VLEX, hearing the shots, so now they have effectively all the information of the two teams and where they're positioned inside the storm line there. Meanwhile, Curve and Higgs on the other side. I just find it so interesting that they somehow managed to piece together enough damage considering they play one of the most isolated sections of the map here, but they just get to it when it matters. They find their damage fast.
Yeah, I think part of that is not necessarily that they're not finding damage, is they're not taking damage either, you know what I mean? So it ends up kind of at 0 for most of the early game. One tag is going to put them above most of the teams, even taking no damage. You see the rotation coming out from Reed and Cooper, something that we saw in the heat stages for them to make it there. Reese Hub just showing everybody how
not
it works.
know why
You kind of
people
just
not
either
punch
pickaxe
it out
or just take a shot at one of those flotation devices, flies in the water. And the key for this strategy though is that rapid fire SMG. Every other weapon in the game will simply do way too much damage. The flotation device will break and you'll end up like the skipper just stuck in the middle of nowhere. But they go ahead and do that, allows them to, in a matter of 60 seconds to maybe a minute and a half max, they rotate all the way from Wonky Land to the southern portion of the map where they're looking to head.
This is what makes them such a sleeper duo, right? Look at the preparation involved in setting themselves up here for the grand finals. You didn't see this come out of this particular team during the heat section. We did see this strategy used during the heat section, but we knew there was going to be a team to bring it to grands, and of course, go figure, it's Reed and Cooper now. Meanwhile, Virgo and Shadow, a very slow start to their game. One Heat Wave Harbor, bringing a lot of troubles here for teams nearby. Shadow, Virgo, watching things off in the distance. It's a full-on fight breaking out right ahead of them. You have Webster here.
Along with Encrypted. Webster, you know, part of that 313 community with Bucky, Okus, who's also in this. I know Brando's kind of joining that as well. And when Webster qualified, the entire house erupted with cheers. Like, that is the type of friendship you want to have, supporting. And that comes from Bucky not making the actual finals. For him to still show that support is just absolutely insane. And so for Webster Encrypted, I feel like Webster's playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. You know, being passed up by so many duos, finally getting somebody in Encrypted that he's confident with. And I think this is a moment to prove, like, hey, I'm not just a content creator, I'm a threat to your guys' lobbies.
All right, he's gonna start to separate himself from the narrative. Uga, Braids on the other side, still here. They've moved not too far off, but they've managed to find themselves as the Frosted Flats, playing a Surge Tower deep in the storm. Very interesting strategy right now. But you can see the population really starting to thin out. Meanwhile, look at this. Jacob, we have one of those indestructible kind of bases being built around the trees that can give them that extra fortification here. This is already looking pretty tough for them, though. 92 below. They're going to be forced to reposition here, find a team to fight.
Say they probably feel like they see nobody up there on the mountain, but little do they know Donnie and Slepsies are going to be above. They're 92 below, so even if they do end up running into them and taking the fight, it's a fight I feel like they need here. Building in a lot of wood, that's a sign of weakness. They're quickly switched on over to Brick, but is it too little, too late? Poyo ends up in the box, gets the first drop on his Slepsy, but he takes a big shot himself, so they're still going to be below that damage threshold. Peterbot finally gets in, good damage being dealt out, and just in time because Poyo had fallen, and now he has to be the hero. No! The full fall damage. Why Peterbot now has to worry in the 5th zone, Monster, how to get his teammate back.
So tough. You saw what he tried to do. He tried to build the floor to catch his teammate, but everything just came crashing down, and Peterbot went with it. unfortunate amount of damage taken there in the process. I mean, at this point, it
Peter
does
Butt.
make sense for him to come back up, kind of reuse these builds here the best that he can since the zone comes here, but also probably
more
take the fight here
picking.
shortly. What a fight, though.
Die by bot, damn it.
Yeah, I gotta figure out what. Oh, the roll around from the ramp to the flat grab. That's what it was. If it would have been just floor on floor, he would have been fine. But from ramp to flat ground creates the roll. He tumbles and stumbles off the edge, and now you can kind of see it. Instead of going for any bit of rebate or reboot miracle in the backside of zone, he said, you know what, Pollo, you handled Summit Land. Let me handle game 2.
But what was crazy too, like this is a full circle moment. You saw the graphic coming in about how like Peterbot had no clutch points, right? Like earned as a solo. Well, seems like the universe is saying, let's just even those numbers out a fair bit here. We'll just have to see what Peterbot can do for himself here and now. Meanwhile, Victor V and Queasy, 123 above. Small adjustments to the strategy seem to have worked for them so far, but not by a large margin, but enough to give them some room to work with.
I just got to be careful here because it's not just Angel and Joe there that they have to worry about. Higgs and Curve on the backside of that mountain as well. So even though they think it's a little under the radar, that side of the map, there's still a lot of contention here. Zonda and Okus was talking about Webster and his success. Okus coming back after a little break and immediately making the actual FNCS Grand Finals. And he was saying, I'm landing everywhere. He marked the whole drop map and said, if you're in first, I'm coming for you. Zonda, though, takes a Storm Surge pick before any of that fight happening, which means he's going to go down. Okus, though, being granted an opportunity here, able to clean up that elimination. Hopefully that can get him above the damage threshold because it cannot stop here. He still has to rotate to zone.
Yeah, and even if he gets rewarded with the elimination credit there, he's 8 damage below, so he needs to tag something here. And now you have a couple players loose off to the right side of him. There it is. At least the damage ends up settling and balancing out. Okus now by himself here. Already have earned himself 12 points, 4 of which came from that last elimination. Looking at the bigger picture here, though, Queasy, Victor V seem to have settled in comfortably, but take a look at this. Trouble in Paradise for King and Craze, the team that, again, we've hyped up their situation arguably the most. They probably have one of the most favorite kind of situations falling in place for them on their side of the map, but this time, Surge, for the first time, I feel like all season long, they're having a problem with. Meanwhile, you have Peterbots there on the side. Craze likely to have to take this fight here shortly.
Yeah, you can kind of see him trying to cover as much distance on ground at first. Realizing teams are there, he's going to have to shockwave on out. But now he only has one of them left. And in fact, it's going to be 0 before he inevitably gets eliminated by Havoc. Perfectly timed opportunity there for him. You got to imagine the stress he was under, especially if he is a solo. Muzz and Rise facing some stress themselves. Lobby focused for a short moment. And you know as well as I do, when you build in wood, you're getting focused. People tend to think you are weak. They continue with that green light. Muzz is taking a beating here. Not sure where Rise is at. We saw him outside of the zone healing. But Muzz needs help, and he needs help fast.
Yeah, this is really rough right now. Look at the map. Everyone has found themselves cuddled up on this bottom section, just the way this, you know, this rotate kind of played out here. And that's why the lobby focus is so strong. It's so noticeable here. Everyone can kind of just get involved, consider how close you are. And yeah, the cliff here is not helping. So what a way for this one to play out. But here you have it. Victor V set up on high ground. Queasy on the opposite side. They've taken 2 solo singular towers up top. The zone's going to start playing, I believe, towards Queasy's side here. And this is what we expected of Victor V and Queasy. They said it themselves. Every game, they will go for high ground if they are in the lobby. Game 1 was tough, but now they've made it past the difficult part.
Yeah, you see there, Queasy, 35 victory royales in FNCS finals that he's played in. And this could be number 36 here if him and Vic can continue to hold their presence on the high ground. But it is 7th zone. This is way earlier than most teams typically start to take it in the 8th and 9th. So hopefully they have enough materials. The key thing for them here, Monster, is find eliminations, drop down for that loot. Otherwise, if they're contested, they might not have any materials to fight it off.
Listen, I've heard Victor V say it himself that high ground is easy. You just got to get up there, and there's a misconception about taking it early. Well, they're looking to show us just why that is. Meanwhile, though, Clicks and Rapid playing the mid-ground layer right now. There are so many teams here. Again, considering how congested the way the zone is forcing players, and it's moving right back and forth over the same areas. These are not max pulls by any means, so it really is going to force players to basically stay alive for a little longer than they otherwise normally would.
Which means Victor V and Queasy might not have all the time in the world to pressure because of those recycled builds, but Higgs and Curve, winners of game number 1. First place so far in our leaderboard, 121 points. Less than 40 players, so Storm Surge, not necessarily a worry for the rest of the game. It's just making it from point A to point B consistency. And you can see him looking off to the side, seeing Angel, spots him out as a solo, immediately putting down the pressure. And you see the Spire rifles. I thought we would miss the Stinger with that being vaulted, but right now those Spire rifles are putting down an immense amount of pressure.
Victor V, Queasy already reinforcing the builds up top. We keep an eye on them. Acorn takes a lot of damage on that rotate, forces them to use a full chug here, and that's 1 down, 1 left to go. A singular shockwave for them here. This is the last of their rotates. No edit comes through though. They're just looking for the stamina boost. There they go. Meanwhile, you see Curve kind of eyeing up that second height. Pressure comes in from Queasy. They force their way down, and then you have Rapid and Clicks lurking on the mid layer.
Yeah, even below them, you have Cold and Ritual. Yamso, what seems to be by himself, another game forced to clutch up. I think he got around 18th place in game number 1, so already meeting that quota. As Rapid and Clicks, as you said, continuously looking up. Some damage is going to connect. That's going to give them the confidence to shockwave their way on up and battle for it. In their eyes, this could be the reason why they win the game, but Victor V is not able to be in the same box with Queasy. He's just trying to put pressure down to keep Queasy alive.
This is where he has to shine, though. They actually give up the high ground. Both sides have used all their material, but Rapid's the one who's super healthy here with the material count, so he will manage to kind of remain in control here. Meanwhile, Acorn loses bolts once again. Now Acorn has to clutch this one up by himself.
Okay, my
We're
pick
in the top 14
to
here,
win
though.
up and
Placement
just
points
not
are
looking
really starting
good.
to get dished out. Meanwhile, I see Queasy finds elimination. Acorn
Maybe not
finds
in
one
mine.
too, and they're going back to back, tit for tat, and points are starting to add up now.
That feeling
I
of
did
deja
whop
vu
it
of heat
freaking
stages,
far. Oh my
Acorn's
God.
quad eliminations in the zone to keep himself alive.
In my
As we jump on board, Cold and Ritual, you can see them going underneath the radar, only peeking when they have to. They know they have to rotate to the zone, but they're lurking on any potential players that are in shambles towards the back before they start to move forward. They realize they want to take the left side where it continues to open up, cut off as many players as possible. Acorn doing it all by himself, so he has to make that sacrifice. You see him run into the zone, build some extra space, and then start his heals.
Key placement points potentially to be earned here as Higgs. Curve find another elimination here. This is on to Minish. Now we're inside the top 10. Nice right now. They find Curve or Cooper there with a big shot. Not too bad, but unfortunately couldn't quite close this one out. Now they're forced to slow down all the way. Cooper forced into a different layer. Victor and Queasy still going here. Their second elimination added up. They find Dozier, find Ishu, find another build there too. Queasy and Victor are cooking here on the low ground. From 0 elim straight to 3 now. All of a sudden, we're inside the top 10.
And a full chug jug found by Queasy. We know those could be a difference maker if it comes down to the heal off. Curve gonna be by himself. 155 points, still a cushion being built. Not sure how big it's continuing to foster, but Curve just lurking around. 2 builds left. He's trying to save them for the coldest moment here. Cold doing the same thing. 3 builds, healing off to the back. No shockwave to cover that ground instantly. Acorn is finally going to fall. Dash is going to take him out. A lot of the solos here doing the heavy lifting.
This is where it starts to add up, though. Top 5 now. Queasy, Victor V on the low ground. Solos nearby. The edit comes through, though. Queasy has to double back here. Little bit of a pressure situation starting to unfold. Meanwhile, the high ground starting to fizzle out as well with their material counts. Rapid and Click still holding things down since we saw that big clash off the fight for height. But look at this. You have Cold alive. You have Shadow alive as a solo as well. And the only other duo is Noxy there. But look, Cold versus Shadow. Shadow gets the best of him. But Rapid is the one that steals away the elimination credit there.
Points, points, points. That's all they have in their mind as of now because they are on the high ground. You can see down below because of that pressure, nobody can really contest it, but I might have spoke too soon. Dash and Noxy, backside of the zone. All or nothing for them. Top 3 is not good enough with great shots landed onto Clicks and Rapid, though. They've overthrown him, but I'm not sure Clicks and Rapid are ready to give it up just yet.
This is a fight for the grand finals. Rapid, though, takes down Noxy. Clicks falls. The follow-up for Dash.
Okay,
and
good
Victor
game.
and Queasy are sitting back, firing away here, and they will win the game. And the comeback story now is starting to begin.
He was talking about high ground. High ground's easy when you take it. Just look down. They lost high ground. They were forced to give it up, almost looking like they were in shambles, but they turned it around and took the game, Zeke.
Yes! Yes! It's all
170.
easy.
I was like, wow,
When you're
it's like the guaranteed win if I got that
Guys,
off.
is this just a story of the Young
was
Bucks?
fucking
Like,
pissed.
what the heck? This is now the second game. Game 1, we get Curve win. Game 2, Victor
I even got high, I'm not gonna lie.
Kelly?
I mean, listen, as
I
soon
thought
as
you
we
were
saw
gonna call it
Vicky
off
V with that
because
mythic
I didn't
pistol
have
in
it,
his
and I had
hand,
no
we knew
shots.
that that was meaning that he got to take it away from Higgs, potentially. We don't actually know what happened in that off-spawn fight, but to see that pistol in his hand, we saw just how devastating he was in heat. So they were able to control that so well on the low ground as well, Vivid. That is where not necessarily we see Queasy frequently, but a great way to handle losing that early high ground take to kind of convert that high ground loss into a low ground dominance.
And absolutely, that's got to be the biggest talking point for these guys right now. I mean, you take a look at how well they ended up playing the low ground, how advantageous of a position they were in. They were just kind of shooting fish in a barrel, and all these solos kind of running around. The refreshes just started to flow in. And I love when a team can kind of establish and play two different play styles, because we know Queasy wants to play the higher ground. But the most impressive thing about this game is that under a lot of pressure from Clicks and Rapid, they do not falter. They're able to drop all the way down, remain healthy, and kind of rebalance out their situation to pull out a victory royale. It's like way more impressive than we can really give them credit for, to kind of survive somebody trying to take away the higher ground, kind of have the intelligence to be like, hey, listen, we've lost it, whatever, it's theirs, let's go on and just win the game somehow, some way. An incredible win from Queasy and Victor V.
It looks so good. I cannot believe that was just game number 2. Ooh! When we go to break, or when we're going to break, we come back. We're gonna talk about things on this leaderboard. Things are starting to get shake up, but don't panic. It's just game 2. Don't panic. I'll panic for you. Okay, we'll see you after this. We'll be right back.